Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Well, welcome to the 2-Month Review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%, in which we take a single book, break it down section by section, talk about it, analyze it, have jokes, have a good time. This season, we are going through Schoen's Codex 1962, and today we will be talking about the last section, pages 303 through 343, of Volume 2 inside of this, which is called Iceland's Thousand Years, a Crime Story. So I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox.
Hello, Chad. Hi.
How you doing?
Good. Happy Juneteenth.
Hey, you stole my bit.
Sorry. Just kidding. Hi.
That bit's coming. And our special guest this week is Toby Carroll, who is back to talk about Schoen. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. You know, enjoying the weirdly not warm summer, which apparently, from what I can tell, is like an aberration over North America, and everywhere else it's like much warmer than it should be for this time of year. So
yeah, we're gonna get bombed. I'll bet. Like in July and August, it's gonna be brutal.
Yeah, no, I'm already prepared for it. Yeah.
You said it was rainy there. Here it's like gorgeous today. It's actually like perfect weather, which is why I was like trying to convince everyone in the office that we shouldn't work in the office today. Like we should all go out and read somewhere, because it is Juneteenth, which is the day of emancipation, Freedom Day, and I think it should be a national holiday. And so I think the best way to have a national holiday is to just start doing it. Like don't wait for Trump to say that it's the national holiday. Just be like, no, today's a national holiday. We're not working in the office.
In America, it's only a national holiday if you're grilling outside on a work day. During lunchtime, like it's a holiday.
I agree.
Is there fire and meat involved when you're supposed to be working?
And beer. There has to be like an option of beer.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
I also believe that every Friday should be a holiday.
Yeah,
I think that's a like an Applebee's slogan, but whatever.
That's why their service is always so shitty. It's like, well, I don't work today. It's a holiday. Every day is Friday at Applebee's. So Toby, are you a longtime fan of Schoen's work?
Reddick, this is I think the third or fourth book of his I've read. Okay. So yeah.
Because you reviewed this for somewhere, didn't you? I meant to double check.
Yeah, I wrote about it in the Words Without Borders column.
That's right. That's right. So you read it a while ago, and were you surprised that it wasn't on the Best Translated Book Award shortlist?
You know, now that you mention it, yeah. I mean, it's certainly an ambitious book and kind of not like anything else I've read in a while. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
But also I think both it and I'm totally blanking on the title, but his previous book that appeared in FSG, both I feel like had this interesting mixture of like structural risk taking and I think very a very deep-seated appeal, sort of very wide appeal, and a good dose of, I don't know, I'm going to say sentimentality but in a good way.
Yeah. The other one was like Moonstone, right? The boy.
Yeah.
What is the subtitle? The Boy Who's Something. But yeah, I know what you mean. There is like a bit of that, of the sentimentality, or like they're a bit more human than some of the earlier books were.
Yeah.
The earlier books are also extremely good, but they are it's Moonstone, The Boy Who Never Was. But these ones have a little bit more, heart's maybe not the right word either, but a little bit more of like the character sentimental nature. So
yeah. And it also seems very much like with both of them, he's kind of both dealing with he's kind of addressing his own mortality and and kind of addressing topics perhaps more intimate to him, whether it's his family or other elements of his life.
Yeah, I think that's true too. There's a lot of heritage things, and this will come up in the third section, which will starting next week will really alter the scope, I think. So don't give that away. because I think anyone who's reading along or hasn't gotten there yet, it's going to change things dramatically and kind of open up exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So should we jump into this? So we got where we left off. We had more or less our triumvirate of Leo, Anthony, and to what is Pushkin. We're going to come together so they could steal the gold from the twin brothers, so that Leo could boil it down, put it into the golem, and bring the narrator to life. And at the same time, there was like the murdered kid, Asker, who had accused Hroffin, the stamp collector, of killing him by embodying or going into one of the mediums that was giving a spiritualist presentation and saying that he had killed him. So we pick up where he's basically in jail. The three are plotting what they're going to do and how they're going to get the gold. And the first chapter 14 that we're looking at is basically them recounting this plan, which sounds insane and is more or less like everyone being like, this isn't going to work. This is a bad idea. This is very odd. And the thing that struck me the most about this chapter, though, is the very first part has like a pun or a wordplay that doesn't quite work right for me, or it took me a long time to figure out what was going on, because it begins with Pushkin saying, I have rear projection. Anthony agreed wholeheartedly, me too, and put 3 sugar cubes in his coffee. Really? Yeah, it's totally verboten. Oh, no one has told Pushkin this. I'm sorry, man. I don't know how it is in the Soviet Union, but back home in Louisiana. And then it goes on. It's like, what the fuck is this? And I believe that what it is that he misheard rear projection as real objection, but that because then later on in the chapter, they're like, oh, he no longer has any real objection to the plan. And I think that that's what the pun was supposed to be, but I just did not pick up on it as I was reading. I was just like super confused, and then came around to maybe that as the interpretation of what this joke was supposed to be.
Yeah, it says right there on 304 in the middle. Yes, me and Pushkin have real objections.
Right.
Right. And by when he says rear projection, does he mean like the tail that's growing?
The tail, yeah, because they decided they're not going to call it a tail; they're going to call it a rear projection.
A rear projection. Okay, yeah.
Because Iceland has so many great words.
Yeah.
That I had also not. That stood out to me, but I was also trying to figure out what exactly was going on there. And I was a little bit lost, and I just found myself thinking of, for whatever reason, I guess because this is kind of the slightly film noir inspired section, like all of the sort of 40s, 50s, 60s scenes of someone driving in a car where it is obviously using a rear projection to signify that they're moving through traffic. And so I was thinking of that, and I was like, I don't think that's what he's talking about, but I don't know what he is talking about. So
his magic tail. That is the film noir thing does play out here too, because it's almost like that, or maybe not film noir, but like that moment in those heist movies where the players are all sitting around the table and they're like, this specifically, it sounded like a good idea yesterday. Just grab the guys and you hold them down while I pull out their teeth. Done and dusted, man. And like everyone's sitting around being like, yeah, this totally made sense. And then in the light of day, you're like, wait a minute. Like, we're going to just do what now? We're going to just grab them and yank their teeth out? This is a bad idea. This plan is not well thought through. But then I love like the little on 306, there's a little like where Leo's basically like, man, it's never going to work. This isn't going to work. I'm going to just abandon my hatbox child. And like, then imagines this future of like 1989 when someone rents the house and finds that hatbox and it's just dust, and like dust throws the dust out into the wind and it just like drifts away and it's gone. And it's like, nope, we're going to give this a go. We have to give this a go.
Yeah. It's such a specific, like, yeah, we're like, all right, at this specific point, this specific person will do this thing. It's not just like very general, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
The situation is like its own like little short story that takes place entirely in the imagination of one character.
You're right. Like almost like an alternate timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very specific. And so Leo convinces them to go along with it by showing them the baby, our narrator, who then breathes for at least once. rose and fell even more. His clay breast rose and then fell even more slowly. His eye who breathed, two gasped. One of the men saw in me a magnificent fulfillment of the relationship between man and God. The other, the achievement of a man who had broken free of all ties with the divine. Which that is interesting too, because it does pit against, like, it's curious that we have the three players in this are a Jew who escaped the Holocaust, not evangelical, but like a religiously raised professor of comparative religions, and a Russian spy who's like devoted to the Communist Party.
A godless communist. Right?
Godless commie.
Yeah.
With a tail.
Yeah.
Because all commies have tails. I grew up in the 80s. I remember this.
No, and it's almost like each, in a way, they're all kind of painted with kind of broad brushstrokes where there's almost like a sense of satire with everything, even with the expectations of noir, the expectations of when we get to a werewolf, how these interactions play out are very, there's a bit of like bathos to it, and like almost like, I hate to say subverting expectations, but it's always subverted in some way, it seems like.
It's true. I like that too, very much. I love too where like that plays out, and then there's like, I love this great line where it says, "This is why Pushkin is sometimes a little tiddly. Icelanders drink so much whiskey. Pushkin drank only vodka at home in Russia, but here Pushkin must not say no. No, it's part of the job." So because they drink too much whiskey, Pushkin has some issues. They just stuck to vodka. Just stick to vodka, you'd be fine. Which is kind of like that stereotyping and playing up that kind of that's with the expectations, but making him kind of like a joke figure or satirical figure. Of course, the Russian only wants the vodka. And then I suppose, Brian, you should talk about your luchador.
Oh, El Negro Man? Is that what
Yes.
I'm trying to find the line.
Then 310.
310. Yeah, I mean, I think it just again goes to it. Like, why is he wearing a skeleton leotard to go pull this? Like, that's his heist outfit. Like, it's just so bizarre. It's so crazy.
He had donned a skin-tight black bodysuit decorated with white brushstrokes depicting a skeleton, his head hidden by a hood with slits for eyes and mouth which formed the skull. Altogether, he was El Negro Man. This is how he had been dressed when he had wrestled in Mexico City, where he had spent 3 years studying comparative religion as a postgraduate. He's like,
like Octavio Paz is in there as well, right? Like,
I met some fine people there, like Paz. I wouldn't be surprised if he won the Nobel Prize one day, although he's not much of a wrestler. I want to see someone should Photoshop like Octavio Paz in a luchador outfit along with with El Negro Man and have them locked in battle.
Yeah, it's very, very bizarre, and to know that they're going to encounter a werewolf at some point, and then
the Freemasons Lodge.
Yeah, all the
Secret
weird
societies.
Stuff with that. The what was it? Yeah, at the AA meeting when they're describing. Like, good Lord,
the AA meeting cracked me up.
If you try to explain this to somebody, it's just it sounds as batshit as it is, I guess.
Yeah.
This is like, it's almost like it's how to put this, but like when people write like with the Shones earlier books, I bet there are people who are like, dude, your books don't have a plot. Like, they're all like this like atmosphere and whatever, and there's no plot. And he's like, oh, you want plot? Here you go. This is like a plot of like a normal, heist movie or whatever, or like noir thing. So yeah, so it includes all these crazy ass elements, one after the other. There you go.
It's good to remember that this one did start with the chick inside of the molar of a berserker, right? Of like a giant. So like it even starts kind of mythic and bizarre in a way as well. So
right.
I almost forgot that until just right now.
Yeah. It's interesting. The first one was like that love story and like the origin of the person, our future narrator. And then this chapter is more about that creation of Iceland as the myth, or the people as the myth. And like his dad takes on a mythic aspect here along with these other mythic characters, and like what he had to do to bring him into the world. To bring the narrator into the world is like this huge complicated set of plans and like danger in a way like that the earlier one was also filled with danger and bringing him into the world, but it was and had like the love element to it, and that created that whole thing with the angels and the myths of love and like lust for humans and all that kind of stuff. This one does seem to be more of like that myth making of the national identity or of a sort, and the danger that brings him into the world.
Yeah, and there's the weird, you know, bizarre like history of each person that's in this as well, right? So,
and it is a mixture of like godless, like they mentioned that there, and I sort of like brushed by it in when I first read it until I mentioned a few minutes ago. But there is that difference between like the religious and the non-religious in the creation of this child. Like they're both involved, and this is again like supposed to be a man that's born to be like the bearer of peace and like a different sort of man, and it is within like a different sort of context that these three people are making it possible for him to come into the world.
Yeah, because I remember the first book, it ends with part of the climax is the angel breaking the trumpet. It doesn't. Yeah. The angel doesn't bring down Armageddon, and it matches with the nuclear test or the Trinity test, I think, right, or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, with Bikini Atoll one.
Okay. Yeah. So there's that, and so then I wonder if when you brought up kind of godlessness, there's always obviously the part where the murdered person is kind of stuck in this weird kind of ghostly astral plane because of that trumpet being broken, right? Wasn't that mentioned as well, or am I making that up?
No, that is
okay. It's hard to remember everything correctly.
I know.
So I wonder if and part of that is in the creation of Iceland becoming a country is in that godless state of where there's the nuclear age, and then the angel having broken the trumpet at the same time, and that's when the nation starts.
Yeah, and this is jumping ahead a bit, but just because it ties in. So the day that after they get the gold, which we can get into in a minute, and like bring the narrator to life, he's born on August 27th, 1962, which was the day in which the USSR performed a nuclear test at Novaya Zemlya, and in which the Americans launched Mariner 2 to go to Venus. So there's like the nuclear test comes back on the same day that he's born in here. Okay. So he's born on like Iceland's Independence Day, and then on the day of the USSR doing a nuclear test. Although they had the bomb before that, so I believe, didn't they?
Yeah, but this was like a big one.
This is shit. Sounds pretty. I don't know what numbers mean, but 4,000 megaton atom bomb sounds big.
Yeah.
I mean, I only like the 40 megaton bombs are usually like my range of preference.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know if there's anything else with that chapter, but 15 gets a little bit wild because this is where they're going to first get Hrafen was the one who was running the stamp store that's now in jail for the murder. His twin brother is, what is his twin brother's name? It's like not Max, but it's something Mar Carlson. And so they're going to get him first. So they go over various wrestling moves, including cross buttocks aloft, half Nelson, body scissors, which all track. And then they get to the AA meeting, and because Pushkin's a spy, they have the radio wave thing so they can tune in and like hear what's going on, so they know when to like seize this guy. And that's when we get the bit where he's first like, I started drinking with my father. I was only 12, changed my life, blah blah blah. And then he explains. Mar Carlson explains that he had his first drink when he was in the Boy Scouts or the Icelandic Scouts or whatever they'd be called, and that his brother never drank, and he became like, totally an alcoholic. Although the best one has to be the last one that they hear of Einbjörn Egilson, who's like, yeah, I started drinking because I was walking by these kids playing in this park, and they were like, oh, I'm good, I'm sliding, but they say whatever with the sounds of fighting, the sliding. And then he's just like, yep, have to drink. That's it. That's where my alcoholism started from. Like, it makes no sense. But I love, like, there's like the slippery slope of seeing these kids go down a slide over and over. He's just like, yep, I'm fucked.
If I remember correctly, isn't there a thing there where he basically is telling this story for like far longer than you would expect it to, like,
yes.
to go through? It's just like this like interminable amount of time describing like that.
After Ironburn Eggleston had spoken for close to an hour on the slide affair and its impact on his drinking, people began to trickle out of the meeting. I love the idea that AA is just like these super self-indulgent men just being like, oh, let me tell you my story. Like, it's like, I was walking by, I saw the slide. What are you going to do?
Well, it fits.
No,
like
hear
it's
me
all,
out.
they're all creation stories, right?
Yeah.
In some way. And
Yeah.
did that one also kind of some of the diction and word choices? It reminded me of back to Bloodfoot as well.
Oh,
It talks about the kids in the park and like something was afoot and something like he kept bringing it. Like it made me think like it kind of tied it back in a coy little way to I thought like, oh, he's gonna witness a baby getting stomped on, so he had to drink. Like that's what I thought it was gonna be.
that would make more sense.
But no, it was just flighting. That's
Just
all it takes.
So yeah. I mean, I feel like that does sort of make sense. Where it's just like, well, yeah, I'm just gonna justify this. It was kids sliding. It's I wasn't already inclined to be an alcoholic, but once I saw these kids, what are you gonna do? He even talks about writing about it. What did I say? Well, I saw something that led me down the thorny path of alcoholism. Our little children had formed a seemingly endless queue behind this construction, which I later referred to as a slippery slope in my articles in the People's Well. Oh man. And then of course that's juxtaposed with Pushkin being like, and you want some amphetamines?
Yeah. This is taking forever.
Let's
do some coke, man. Yeah.
Got to be ready to go.
Even the way he tells his story, my name's Airborne Eggleston and I'm an alcoholic. It happened like this one morning 13 years ago. That's 5 years after we became a free nation among the nations of this world. I happened to who tells a story like that?
Yeah. And then I saw something special as a foot.
Yeah, so there you go. And then I think on the next page it says he was wrong-footed.
Oh.
So they do bring up there's the foot imagery with kids in the playground. So I'm wondering if that had to go back, if that's going back to Bloodfoot.
That's interesting. Yeah. I hadn't even paid attention to that, but that makes sense. And this is about the point where the Bloodfoot story was told in the first volume, like near the end as well. There are certain things that seem to parallel between these. We talked about the opening chapters of both of them, and I don't remember. Find out next week what the opening chapter of the third one is, if it also includes that kind of myth making. But I wonder if there are other parallels that existed between the three that we might not notice at first, like the Bloodfoot reference.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe. So anyway, so they wait. Chapter 16. On page 318, they wait for everyone to start walking out, and then they jump on Mar Carlson and stab him with a syringe full of a tranquilizer. And then Anthony Brown throws him into the back of the car, which is perfect. Shoves a sock in his mouth, keep him quiet. And they find the locket, like a locket that has the gold in it, I believe. Yes. The glow was like the gold glowed in the illumination from the streetlights, and the glow was like the very spark of life. So that's where they get the first piece, and then they have to go get Hroffen, but he's like in the crazy ass like lodge with the Grandmaster, and apparently he is leading a donkey along a row of other Freemasons who all pull out their penises and slap the horse. Let me just read this because that sounded porny. Hroffen Carlson leads the ass anti-clockwise around the chamber. He pauses in front of each man in turn. The ass is given a rose, and the brother takes his penis out of his trousers and strokes its tip against the beast's gray flank while it munches on the rose petals. This is an ancient ritual, and absolutely no thoughts of a sexual nature pass through the minds of the ministerial permanent secretary, coffee roasting company director, city mayor, director of the water company, master gardener, the man incapable of anything, the baker, butcher's merchant, director of the central bank, wholesaler, government minister, or cathedral priest when the sensitive skin on the tip of their penises touches the ass's hide. Yeah, so that's what's going on.
Wow.
Is this supposed to be a joke too? The priest brings up the rear.
Oh yeah.
In this gathering of the.
So funny. I love that.
What do you guys do with those Freemasons? Oh, it's secret. We can't tell you.
Ancient rituals.
There's probably a reason why.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's so funny. And then this has a then what's that?
So two very, very different kinds of confidential meetings going on there.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. One, I'm not sure. Yeah, they're both odd in their own ways, I suppose. But that is a good that's a good parallel too, especially with the twins. But this part, this is the section. So yeah, so they have that, and they're gonna get him in a minute. But the thing that I found most interesting in this chapter is another one of these pun sections. Like this is another pun part that just doesn't seem to work right. And I don't know how you would do this in translation. You had a question, Brian, about translating humor. But so they're on page 322, Pushkin's talking about last night I dreamed about the night porter from the city hotel. And then goes on to say, I thought it was on a top floor of a building that was actually a bleached skull. A thick mane of grass grew from the scalp, covering the whole thing like green rushes. At the same time, it was like a huge spreading quilt. I began to roll around in the quilt like you do when you're a kid, and it was fun because it was black and big and thick and smelled of wildflowers. When I had rolled around in it for some time and reached the place where the headboard should have been, that is towards the back of the crown where the skull slopes down to form the nape of the neck, I became aware of a man under the long grass. He sat up and began to romp around with me. When I woke, I realized it was the night porter from the city hotel. I didn't know the man from Adam. I've only glimpsed him coming off duty. And then he says, is there something alchemical about this? How do you say that? Alchemical, whatever. So he looks at Leo, and this is where I was like, I don't know how this is supposed to work. A skull, a man from Skeleton. Leo ponders a skeleton. Pushkin shakes his head. Leo frowns. Head, kaput, capital, city hotel, capital city. Pushkin nods. Not bad. I prefer state of mind. Leo bursts out laughing. My God, we're turning into proper Icelanders. So I assume that this is all a lot of like, if Kari was on here, he'd probably have the full explanation of like the wordplay that's going on there. But you can see like skeleton going to skeleton and referring to his dream. And then like the head kaput capital is one that I don't know if that's working in English as well as it probably works in Icelandic. Do you have any thoughts on that part, Toby?
I do not. I mean, I mean, I think some of it may also just be the like, unfortunately, as an American, prior, I know Reykjavik, and that's about it for me as far as like odd place names. I've doing a residency in Iceland later this year, so I've been doing a little bit more research into geography, but I also am realizing that I am terrible at pronouncing place names in Iceland. So I was recently reading Orethi, the Wasteland, and that was also giving me like, I was like, all right, I don't know if I ever try to speak any of these names in the presence of an Icelander, like I'm gonna get slapped just by virtue of just I'm from Central Jersey. I don't know how to pronounce words correctly.
They're pretty forgiving. They understand. Icelanders are good people. They're really good. I love Iceland. I'm hoping to go back next summer. But we've done so many books from Iceland too. You have to make sure to get History a Mess. I'll make sure that I think we probably sent it to you, but if you don't have it, let me know. But she's gonna be touring this fall. But yeah, we actually have a couple more Iceland books that would be perfect for your trip, but they're not going to be out, and we don't even have the translations. But we're doing ones on the climate change in Iceland and on the preservation. Yeah. Those are going to be amazing. It's like Dreamland and then Of Time and Water are the two books. So but they're not going to be out for a little while, and we're not going to get the translations until the end of this year. So yeah, but Iceland's amazing. So I don't get that joke. I don't get the joke either. And it's like you were saying, Brian, you're asking about like translation of humor. Like writing humor is hard enough because you have to have the pacing and the timing and have it like hit right. And when it's like puns, maybe I don't know if puns are easier because people recognize them as a joke. Whereas like sometimes if it's a voice thing, people don't recognize it as a joke because a lot of jokes are premised upon going beyond what you think is acceptable. And so like people could take something that is a joke as something that's horrible because it is horrible. And that's why it's a joke. And that can be complicated, but puns, and if you're writing puns in English, people are always like, oh, that's supposed to be funny. But then in translation, it seems to me like the humor of translation that's easier to translate are the bits of the jokes that have a structure that can be replicated throughout any culture. So like jokes about your boss or about your mother-in-law or about like the government officials being dumb, like that you can take anywhere in the world and just transpose that and change things slightly and make that joke work. But the puns in other languages seem much more difficult, especially if it's like a language that is either like in Iceland, maybe too close to English in the sense that it's like old English. And so the puns either are going to work or definitely not. Or if it's like, if there's puns in like Korean. I remember talking to Janet Hong about her translation of The Impossible Fairy Tale and how she had to just invent. There's an article, I think it might be on Words Without Borders, about a way that she came up with a way to dress a pun in there related to a cat's name. But it was like so far away from what the original was because the original pun doesn't work at all. And I feel like that this is right in that middle zone where it's not like there's anything like I don't have a solution for Victoria, but this section reads really funny because I feel like there's in Iceland that this banter and that the banter isn't here in English.
Yeah, I just wasn't. It was lost on me.
Yeah,
and it could just be me not being a good reader.
Yeah,
always possible. But yeah, like I don't know. I wonder if it was supposed to be like that scene where like word association helps you figure something out, you know, and it's like, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. So anyways, well, Leo comes out, or Hrafn comes out. They jump out of the car. They're gonna inject him and tear his wisdom tooth out, which, you know, totally makes sense. Totally cool. And he runs, but they get him. And in 17, they do get him. They Leo opens his mouth. Anthony rips out the wisdom tooth and gives it to Leo, who goes to look at it in the light, finds that it's not the right gold, which I have a question about maybe. And this might be me being a bad reader, but so it's not the right gold. Then they're gonna like set him up a little bit. Then they figure, and when Leo's like, well, it's not the right gold. Without the missing gold, the boy would be a little out of kilter with his fellow citizens. Deaf, lacking arms, diabetic, mentally handicapped, or predisposed to cancer. That last one is not out of line, actually, but he was prepared for that. It wouldn't be the first time something similar had happened in the creation of a homunculus. So then they realize that that the guy that they have in the back, Mar, that's stuck in the trunk, is actually more than just a person. He's a werewolf, and he escapes, and the werewolf is howling with fury. Leo's going to put a silver bullet into his gun and shoot him because silver bullets are how you kill werewolves, I believe. I've not seen Twilight. And that what comes up in a minute is that his molar is the one with the gold, which made me question. So the first time we hear about the gold being in the molar and in the filling is when Leo is selling stamps to the stamp collector guy who he believes is Hrafn. Was that not him? Was that this Mar, his twin brother? Are they flip-flopping throughout this? I don't know if that really matters, but I was just like suddenly like kind of confused as if there's something more to that because they mentioned how because he's an alcoholic, like he always had his brother come and play sports for him. So his brother was the one who set all these records, but they're under Mar's name. And then if Mar possibly were the one that was in the stamp shop with the molar, and then Hrafn keeps saying he's innocent, maybe he is innocent because it's not that twin who killed Isiger, that it was the werewolf twin.
Yeah.
Sure.
And certainly a werewolf committing a crime is I was going to say within the realm of plausibility, and then I'm like, but I am also talking about a werewolf, so it's all relative here.
Fair.
I just love the part on this one where he decides, since they're out by where sheep are, you just pull their pants down, and when they come to, they won't tell anybody what happened because of the embarrassment and the shame of being a sheep fucker or whatever. So it's like perfect plan.
That was actually one of my favorite line of this section. Iceland's one of the few countries where you can still spread rumors about men being sexually attracted to sheep. Why? I don't know. I probably haven't been here long enough, but it's come in very handy. It's like that. It's like the Heathers, a bit from the movie Heathers.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, yeah, Yeah, if you don't have it's Ohio. If you don't have a brewski in your hand, you might as well be wearing a skirt. And they set that up. Christian Slater sets up that as a suicide pact because people believe those things. So yeah, totally. Ty and Heather's here too.
I was also my other random pop culture connection was the name Mar kept reminding me of the Dungeons and Dragons episode of Community.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that one.
The one of the characters is a like barbarian warrior named Mar that the characters of Community are playing in the Dungeons and Dragons game within the show, and so I was just so I just kept thinking of Mar in that.
That's great.
Which is also just wonderful because there are like many scenes of Joel McHale just like saying the name Mar disdainfully, which is just wonderful.
I really like Joel McHale.
Yeah,
I love his that show that he was doing for a long time on E, but that now they have it on Netflix, I guess.
Oh yeah.
What is it called? Not Best Week Ever, but someone in the comments help us. Someone watching us that show, the Joel McHale show. I think it's called the Joel McHale show now, but it was called something else on E. But I love that.
The Soup.
The Soup. Yes, the Soup.
Yeah. It was like Greg Kinnear a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah.
That shows how I found out about so many reality shows like the what is that one? The Southern one. I can't think of anything now, but like there's so many crazy reality shows that exist that I only know about through watching The Soup.
Oh, Swamp People.
Swamp People is one, but there's like Party Down South. Party Down South is one of the funniest. I would never watch that show, but the clips of that show that they used on The Soup were some of the funniest, most crazy things I've ever seen. There's like one, there was a long argument about whether it's always just drunk Southerners, just like wasted drunk, like Florida State level drunk. And they're arguing about whether the sun is a star or a sun for like 10 minutes.
Oh, that reminds me of that wonderful viral video of the Home Shopping Network where they're doing like hair products, and he's like, the lady's like, what is that, a moon? No, that's the sun. Well, the sun is a moon. No, the sun is a planet. Wait, what's the sun? And like this is on live TV while they're supposed to be selling hair care products. I'll email it to you later so you can watch it. But
I have to. That sounds wonderful.
Marvelous. It's just like this lady and a hairstylist saying, what is the moon? What is the sun? It's a planet.
It's a planet.
No, but this does have that kind of, I mean, obviously we get it with the letter that we get later, really kind of goes over the top with it, but it has like that kind of Scooby-Doo feeling where maybe the person he sets his brother up because he has a gold filling, so he does a gold filling in his tooth as well, and he has both pieces of gold, I think, but that way they can still kind of be twins and trade off by having the gold in their mouth.
Oh yeah.
I'm thinking that might be kind of what was the confusion, or like they both got gold in their mouth, we got to get it, and the one guy had both pieces and kind of faked it so that the other one.
Yeah,
and they don't realize that until they pull it out and realize it's not the right gold or whatever. But
right, yeah, like a Scooby-Doo thing.
Yeah, it just kind of has
mask
like
on a mask on a mask.
Yeah,
and a werewolf.
But again, I think it goes back to like taking it's almost being like a satire of the expectations of murder stories or genres, or because again we get the werewolf hunting scene and it ends with just like a. Oh, fuck it, I won't kill you. All right, bye.
like taking off.
It was like this wonderful anticlimactic. I love that part.
Yeah, that is really fantastic. That comes up here, right? That isn't even past that.
Yeah,
it's later. Yeah, it's like
it's at 3:30.
I think it's after that, 3:39. Because we have this weird chapter. Then there's section 7 is anniversaries. And chapter 18 is just dates of like things that happen. And I, to be honest, I sort of skimmed through this and pay attention if there's any specific pattern to like what these dates were acknowledging. But it reminded me of, have either of you read the book by Patrick Orednik called Europeana?
No.
Yes.
It reminds me of that because I remember like we did that when I was at Delki, and reading that for the first time, where it was like it's a history. It's like a history of the 20th century in Europe, but it's like 120 pages, and all the facts are like the least important facts of like that, or like a not the relevant facts. It's not like the history of Europe. It's like the history of these weird, it's like weird factoids about, or not factoids, fun facts about Europe, in which it'll be like the soldiers during D-Day were at average height of like 5'6", and the soldiers that fought in this other part were an average height of 5'8", and they weighed this many pounds. And it'll be like all these little things that happen that are all true, but they're not really like the big picture. Like it's all the little details. And this sort of reminded me of that style. Because it does just balance. Like in 1912, Edgar Rice Burroughs publishes the novel Tarzan of the Apes. Exactly a year later, the philosopher Donald Mackenzie McKinnon is born. I don't know who Donald Mackenzie McKinnon is, or if that's a real person, but like it's like flip-flops between something you do know and something you don't. The same day, a historic aeronautic event takes place in Kiev when Lieutenant Pyotr Nestorov of the Imperial Russian Air Service takes to the air and completes a backwards loop in his monoplane. Like, is that really a significant event in world history?
Your talk of Europeana may prompt me to do a long digression, which I'm not sure I should.
Do it.
But
do it.
So I also noticed that part, and I like 2 weeks ago went to a theatrical adaptation kind of Europeana
Really?
at the Park Avenue Armory called Everything That Happened and Would Happen, which is kind of sort of an adaptation. Like it uses the text of it. There are also parts that almost play out like modern dance. It's one of those things where I've seen it, but I also have no idea how to describe it. Just in the context of like, it frequently makes use of characters, people, the players on the stage reading, sections of the book. And there are also periodically there will be like interspersed like live news feeds with no sound. So it's all of this like sort of meditation on European history and the current state of I certainly took there are sort of some final movements in it that I sort of took as an allusion to kind of the question of like whether we're currently watching a fragmentation of the sort of European project now. But it was very, very strange, but like as someone who has read and enjoyed Europeana, I quite enjoyed it. But yeah, it was.
What was the name of it again?
It's called Everything That Happened and Would Happen.
Happened and Would Happen. Wow, that sounds really cool.
I'm going to be writing something about it for Volume 1, Brooklyn. I'm just not sure when it's going to go up.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure once it comes up, I'll make sure to link to it in this episode and everything.
Sweet.
Yeah, so that's that section. Yeah, it ends with like in 1961, Tiger trainer Miss Mabel Stark appears on the American TV show What's My Line? And then on August 27th, 1962, he's born. Our narrator is born. At the same time, later that same day, Soviets explode their 4,000 megaton atom bomb, and the Americans launched Mariner 2 to go to Venus. So that's what he's born into: exploration and destruction.
Yeah, and obviously with Venus being, with Romans, the love, right? So love and destruction.
Yep.
Good.
And then we have the sort of final summary chapter, the last chapter of this section of 19, where it ends. This is where it has that the battle with the philatelic werewolf had ended on top of the water tanks. The cold autumn wind ruffled the monster's fur as he loomed against the moon. Father stayed at a safe distance, and he lets him go. And he's like, I'm far too old for this. My father retreated and pulled back the trigger so the monster would see that he was serious about using the weapon. The other barked, take the bloody thing then. The stamp dealer reached with the long bestial nails of his thumb and forefinger into his mouth and plucked out his wisdom tooth as if there were nothing to it. He flung it at my father, who caught it in the air. His fist closed over the tooth. The moon disappeared behind a cloud. When it shone out again, Hoffa and Carlson had vanished.
And that's that.
There we go.
Yeah.
So, yep, werewolf gone. It's got the gold. He puts it into the baby, and the baby is born, I guess, however you want to say. And
As
then
we all know how all babies are born.
yeah, I've seen it happen. It's absolutely, this is 100% accurate. This might as well be like a manual for midwives. Then there's like that, what you mentioned, the letter, the dear swimming pool customer low, with Asiger Helgeson explaining that, you know, he's unlucky, whatever, comes to the pool, but he's decided to take his own life. And he asked him to take those stamps and whatever, he has them, he gives them the stamps in case he ever needs them, do whatever you want. And then he says he knows his death will attract attention, but he had to get Hroffen Carlson into trouble somehow. So he put the stamp collection in the cupboard. Because he swindled him at one point in time when he was a 9-year-old child, and so he's getting his revenge, which feels like when I was growing up, we collected a lot of baseball cards, and like the guys that ran the baseball card shops
Always trying to rip you off.
Always. They always work because they're like,
you would have to have the Beckett manual and show them like, what are you talking about? And you're like, show them the Beckett manual. Like, no, this says here this is worth $14. You're going to give me $3 for it? What's wrong with you? Like,
yeah,
you would have to, like,
we'll give you
stand
$7
up
in
to-
trade.
You have to like stand up to an adult because they would just rip you off like little kids.
Yep. And like I remember
Savages.
distinctly like being like 12 years old and biking
Same
to
thing with
like one of these
comics.
cops and just be one of these shops and just being screwed by one of these dudes. Yeah.
You got
Like,
screwed by a dude.
I got screwed by a dude in a
baseball
collectible shop.
Oh my gosh.
It was,
Chad, I'm so sorry.
It was traumatic.
At least you weren't at church.
Yeah.
Cool.
But like that does, so like, yeah, I never followed through on revenge the way that he did, but I feel it.
Mine was at a Masons meeting. They made me chew on roses while I walked around in this costume. It was awful. But I'm not supposed to talk about that. Well, these guys with fez hats on. Yeah.
It was just an ancient ritual.
No, but it's true. Like there was this interesting thing there where you're like something about like the older generation taking advantage of the younger generation. Right?
And also knowing that like all that was imploding around them. Like it was only the only thing that fueled that speculator industry was them taking advantage of dumb young kids.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, guys, no, don't worry. This will be worth a shitload in the future. But it's not. It's only worth a shitload at this moment, and we're taking all of your allowance.
Yeah.
Suck it. Fuck baseball card collectors. Or baseball shop owners, I suppose. Then the last part, we have a creation story, which I don't even know if I can summarize because this is the last page I read and I fell asleep.
Little kid falls into a black hole, and when the space daddy pulls him out, there's a little bit of smudge in his fingernail. He gets the smudge, rolls it into a ball, and that becomes Iceland. Or Reykjavik, I think they say, but whatever. We'll say it's the island. Is the clay that was stuck in the space kids.
Yeah,
his thumbnail.
And the Universal Boys fingerprint laid down the guidelines for streets and gardens, parks and squares, today known as Reykjavik. So got the whole creation of Reykjavik, got the creation myths of the baby, got all sorts of creation myths going on in Iceland's 1,000 years. So what's your assessment of this chapter, Brian, or this section versus the first one? This is the second section was the one that my students liked the most.
Okay. Yeah, I think there was an exuberance that I felt in the way it was written, where I got the feeling that Sean was just having a lot of fun and kind of smiling while he was writing, and I got that sense in it, and it made me like I was confused as hell in a lot of places, like what the hell's going on again? But it didn't really matter that much. I was just along for a fun ride. Yeah. Whereas the very first section felt very, it was kind of more like a love letter.
Yeah.
And then I guess with this being a crime story, it was just more, there's just more fun and kind of cheeky, like a cheeky, jaunty nature to it that I really liked a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Toby? What's your section? Or what's your thoughts?
The first section I felt like was a little bit felt a little bit like I'm not going to say a slog, but I definitely enjoyed the second and third parts. Like, I think partially because it was more apparent where this was all going. But I mean, this was also just, you've got a guy who's a former Mexican wrestler and a werewolf and all this, like, it's pretty hard to not have all of those ingredients like be, in a story and not have that story be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like you would really have to like just drop the ball in a massive way, and he doesn't. So, for all that it's ridiculous, it's also very human.
Mhm.
And and I would say that, like, that all works pretty wonderfully. And then, I also quite like the third part because I think it recontextualized a lot of sort of, it left me with a lot of ways to think about the narrative that had come before.
Exactly.
Without getting super spoilery.
Yeah, and we
Yeah,
will.
because I haven't done the third. I haven't read the third part yet. I'm just going along and being very strict with stopping. But I was curious at the end of the creation story. Who's the good knight in the church? Or
I assume that's the narrator and his interlocutor, but like I think that is actually explained.
Okay,
that's not super spoilery.
That's fine.
I mean, just that the people who are talking are finally unveiled.
Yeah. Okay. No, like I figured it's the Golem kid, but I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
But why and who? So again, we've mentioned this before, but the first part, Thine Eyes Did See My Substance, is 1994, and Iceland's 1,000 Years was written 7 years later in 2001. And then the last part, I'm a Sleeping Door, a science fiction story, was written was first published in Iceland in 2016. So a 15-year gap between part 2 and part 3. In which a lot of shit's changed. Like, if you think about like what was going on in 2001 versus 2016, there's a lot of things that didn't exist, and that have altered the way that we think about the world and our place within it. I think
like Limp Bizkit, and just new metal in general.
That is true. Wait, is Limp Bizkit the one with the guy that is dead that Anthony and Kaya were playing music from this morning?
I have no idea.
I think someone's yelling at me because they overheard me say that.
The Limp Bizkit is alive, but not like alive.
Okay, they were playing something that sucked. They'll chime in a second in the comments.
If memory serves, I think the singer of Limp Bizkit has directed a movie with John Travolta that's like either coming to theaters or like video on demand, possibly like now. I'm gonna give me a second.
Really?
I will Google this.
Oh my goodness!
This sounds good.
Miserable. I'm gonna have to watch that.
That movie is gonna be fantastic.
Watch that and that Gotti film that he did. That'd be a great double feature.
Yes, right on. So, do you guys have a favorite line from this section as you look that up?
So there's a movie called The Fanatic, starring which has also worked under the title of Moose.
What?
And it's directed by Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit, and starring John Travolta. And,
holy shit!
And the stills of it, there's a still where it's like Travolta with a really bad bowl cut. I mean, I think that's sort of the point of the character, wearing a backpack and a Hawaiian shirt. I think plaid shorts. It looks real weird.
Whoa! Holy crap! This is amazing. That I'm using that as like the cover image for this post. Everyone needs to see that. When is this coming out? To be announced. Come on, man. They're filming it in, of all places, Alabama.
Because when I think of John Travolta and Fred Durst, Alabama is certainly the.
What is this movie actually supposed to be about? There's no description of it, and on the Wikipedia page, it just says Moose, which I guess has been changed to Fanatic. There's an upcoming film directed by Fred Durst and starring John Travolta, and then it lists the other people who are in it, and that's it.
Oh dear, we'll have to have a watch party for that. That's
I can't. I will watch this. Oh, it's coming out on September 6th, 2019.
Because any grown adult that's over the age of 40 that wears a backwards red Pro-Fit baseball hat like permanently. I want them to be. I want to see their art.
Okay, I found a description of the movie. A rabid film fan stalks his favorite action hero and destroys the star's life. And then, according to IMDb, it's coming on August 16th. So that's even sooner. I just added it to my calendar. I didn't know that you could do that. Cool.
That'll be a weird reminder you're gonna get. What the hell?
What is the Fanatic?
I'm supposed to watch a Fanatic Moose today.
Oh wow. There's an information about it. It might be sooner than that. Bonkers John Travolta and Fred Durst collab The Fanatic, reportedly getting dumped on Amazon this month. Update, according to an email sent from Amazon, the film titled Moose that is scheduled to hit Prime Video on June 29th is actually from 2015 and isn't the Fred Durst directed feature that was originally reported. Oh, okay, never mind. So Fanatic is still coming out later. Someone just wrote an inaccurate article and then a correction to an inaccurate article.
I really like the fact that there are like multiple troubled John Travolta productions, like just floating around in the ether right now.
that Scientology's catching up with them, I guess. I don't know.
Stuff is rough. Well, anyways, I think we went through most of the best lines of here, so we can just skip that. I'm going to tell you that the next week we're going to be going into part 3. I'm a Sleeping Door, science fiction story. We'll be doing the first like 40 or 50 pages. It goes from page 349 to 406. The chapters get a little bit crazy here because some of them have different numbering systems, but it's up through chapter 8 that we'll be talking about. Seems like a lot of chapters, but whatever, they're pretty short. Anyways, and then I'll have more information about this later, but the next season, which will start at the end of July or whatever, I'd like to do Monster Human by Kirsty Skolmsvold, in part because I went to Norway, and this is like a big ass Norwegian book by a woman that didn't get a lot of attention here because it came out through Delki, which is not to just shit on Delki, but to say like it didn't get a lot of attention. And the woman who translated it, Becky Crook, is really fantastic. I think it'd be really interesting to just go into a book, one that I have not read too, and do a couple long books by women in a row, since we'll be doing the Ducks Newburyport later this fall after that comes out from Biblioasis. So if you're going to follow along, I would start contacting your stores or try and get a copy of this book soon. I got this one from the library, but they are theoretically available, but I don't know how easy it is to get a hold of. There is the Kindle version for people who use Kindle. There are copies according to our distributor that are in the warehouse, so your local bookstore could order it for you. But I would do that sooner rather than later, which is why I'm announcing it now. But we'll have a schedule later. It won't start until a number of weeks after the end of this season. But I think that would be a fun book and a fun book that's written by a woman, which we haven't done in a while here.
Sounds fun. I can't wait to read that giant. That looks like the complete guide to Excel. Like, you know, like those like books you get on like how to do Microsoft Office. Like those big, fat, thin pages, and they weigh like 80 pounds. Thanks a lot, Chad.
This one actually is not that long, to be honest. It's only 448 pages, but as you can see, it is bigger. Like it's a half an inch larger, taller, and wider than Schoen's book is. So it's like one of these oversized ones, but the word count doesn't look too terrible on the various pages.
All right.
And it's all set when I'll read the description for anyone who's listening and doesn't know about it. When Kirsty Skolmsvold was 17 years old and about to start engineering studies at college, she found herself almost unable to move. Laid out like a relic in a nursing home, she listens to an old woman dying, watches her boyfriend drift away, and makes compendious lists of her worries, that she'll have to go speed dating in a wheelchair, that she'll be afraid and in pain for the rest of her life. She also begins to compose a novel on Post-it notes that she sticks on the wall above her bed. Monster Human is an autofictional tour de force, a funny, sad, astoundingly energetic novel about suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome, the power of writing, and 21st century literary life.
It sounds awesome, actually.
Yeah. So
right.
I think it's going to be like less crazy experimental than some of the ones that we've done where we're really trying to piece it together, and more just enjoyable and emotionally rich. So yeah, it should be really fun. There's lots of lists in here. So that will be the next one. But until then, next week we'll have this section of Schoen's book, and we really only have 3 episodes left, which will take us to the end of this season. So there's that. Toby, is there anything that you want to plug or anywhere people can find you online?
TobiasCarroll.com and Tobias Carroll on social media. And I guess the next thing I'll plug, I've got a very short story, a piece of flash fiction in an anthology the press Dostoevsky Wannabe is putting out later this summer. That's fiction inspired by the music of the Buzzcocks and Pete Shelley, called Love Bites.
Wow, that sounds great.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds cool.
Yeah.
Sounds really great. I'll find a link to that too and have it in the show notes for anyone who's listening. Brian, you want to plug your book?
Yeah, it's coming out in October. Pre-orders are available at boaeditions.org. Hit it up. It's called Joytime Killbox, by the way. Yeah, but order all the books. Order all the books. You'll find it. It's in there.
just click on everything.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you guys. This was a lot of fun going through this section, and now it's time for you to go enjoy the weather and Juneteenth.
Excellent.
Okay, take care.